meeting to order, and I will start with a roll call and determination of quorum. I will start online. I will call your names, if commissioners, if you could answer with a here or present, that would be great. So Susan Comerford.
Present.
Okay. And Jess Oskey.
Present.
Jack Keefe.
Here.
Michaela Finneran.
Present.
And Mary Cox. Mary is not on yet, but I believe we do have a quorum. That being the case, we will move forward. Are there any additions or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will stand. And do I hear a motion to adopt the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, that has been a motion by Commissioner Comerford, and did I see a second from Commissioner Keefe? Okay, very well. Second from Commissioner Keefe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the previous minutes are adopted. Now we have time for a public forum. Is there anyone from the public here to address the commission? Please. Oh, and just 1 second, sir, just before you speak, I did want to acknowledge that Commissioner Cox is online. Commissioner Cox, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Got
Okay.
it.
All right. So I would simply amend my statement earlier. We have, obviously, we do have a quorum, had a quorum beforehand, but Commissioner Cox has now joined us. So thank you very much, sir. Please let us know who you are and tell us what you have to say.
Hi, I'm Todd DeLuca, a resident of Burlington. I wanted to just commend Lieutenant Henry. The other day, I was filming a video in City Hall Park, and I was confronted by some belligerent individuals in the presence of Lieutenant Henry, and he reminded those individuals that everybody has a right to record in public. And as someone who does a lot of recording in public and who is regularly harassed, threatened, chased, attacked, and menaced on the streets of Burlington, I very much appreciate the lieutenant for standing up for my right and for everybody's rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeLuca. I appreciate your commendation. All right. There appears to be no further public commentary. So is there anybody online? No, nobody's online. That being the case, we will move on to commission business and committee reports from all committees. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that there is nobody online that wishes to speak, a member of the public online that wishes to speak. Okay, at this time I'm going to understand there is no one online from the public that wants to speak. And we will move on to committee reports from all committees. So I'll start with Commissioner Oskey. I don't believe we spoke about, well, we spoke last time a little bit. There was the dog committee, and I believe that business has concluded. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that order has been issued?
As far as I know, it has been issued.
All right. And did that conclude the business of that committee for this purpose?
Yes, and it's an ad hoc committee, so if we need to have an animal control or vicious dog committee again, it'll be appointed as needed.
Sure. So for all intents and purposes at this point, once that order is issued, that committee is effectively dissolved, correct?
And we're really crossing our fingers that all goes well there.
Okay, fair enough. We had another, I believe, committee with regard to complaints. Commissioner Oskey, at the last meeting, I believe I joined that committee as you were the sole member of that committee at that point. I don't have any updates. I don't know if you did. I know we discussed maybe getting together with Chief Burke. I don't know if we ever executed on that, but we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. And so I don't have any updates for that committee, neither do you. So I guess we can have more discussions offline to see if we can move that forward between now and the next meeting. Are there any other committees that I am missing currently? I think that's the extent of them. Okay, I believe that's the extent of those committees for the time being. That will conclude the committee reports and committee changes. I think we discussed a little bit of the changes on the complaints committee in that I, became a member of the complaints committee, and the changes to the, sorry, it keeps escaping me, the vicious dog committee that is now dissolved. So that will conclude those pieces of business. The next piece of business we have is the public information directive that was provided to us from BPD. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to at least see that they received that? Okay, all right. At this point, I would like to move to table that so that we have enough time to discuss them or think through and discuss the matter for the next time. I did have an opportunity to go through it and mark some changes and some edits that I'll be sending Chief Burke to you. I sent those around just last night when I had an opportunity to go through it, but I'm happy to send those to you, and I would encourage the commissioners to do the same once they have a chance to look through it. But I appreciate you providing that, Chief Burke. Thank you very much. So I'll move to table the public information directive for the next police commission meeting. And do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, those opposed? Hearing none, that public information directive is tabled till the next commission meeting, which brings us to the discussion of DD03, fair and impartial policing. Commissioner Oskey, I understand you had some comments that you wish to make in that regard.
Sure, thank you. I brought this to the last meeting, and since then have had a good online discussion with Council McClellan and the commissioners for the city of Burlington and the Commission's Council, and I personally am comfortable moving forward with the draft as it is, but understand that, under state law, the state law says that all jurisdictions must adopt the components of the model policy that's put out by the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council, and it's not clear what the components are, and we might have some folks here to speak to this, but so I'm comfortable that the draft that I put forward does include all the components. It's not a word-for-word adoption of the model policy, but I believe that it addresses the components of the policy. There's not any case law. There hasn't been a conclusion made as to what all the components mean. I think that the draft that I put forward takes into account the main points of the policy, the essence of the policy, and make some clarifications to make it easier for officers to enforce, and add some protections that were in place that were actually inspired by a resolution that was adopted by the City Council in 2020. It brings those protections back into the fair and impartial policing policy. The state law is very clear that communities can have additional protections in their policies, so I'm not worried about bringing additional things into the policy. I think there's some concerns about what has been proposed to be deleted. the recommendation from the city attorney's office is that we, if there's general agreement on the commission to this draft, that we send a draft to the Criminal Justice Training Council's council to get a read about whether this would be considered compliant with state law, and if so, come back to us and we could adopt it at that time. I'm comfortable doing that. I think someone from Migrant Justice is here, and I would like to hear from them on this agenda item, and would also like to hear from other commissioners as to whether they have questions or concerns, or whether that plan to table tonight and get feedback is acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Oski. So I want to be respectful of the public's time. Is there anyone here that is wants to speak on DD03, fair and impartial policing? Okay. If you could come up to the microphone and tell us who you are. And first, Commissioners, I realize we have passed public comment time, but we are pretty good on time. Unless there's any objection to this, I just ask that he be able to speak in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Commissioners. Good evening. For the record, my name is Will Lambeck. I'm a Burlington resident, and I'm here representing the organization Migrant Justice. Of course. Will Lambeck, Burlington resident, also representing the organization Migrant Justice, whose office is in the city of Burlington as well. Apologies for my tardiness. It's been a minute since I've been to a police commission meeting. I went to 1 North Ave, where they used to be held. I was navigating the construction there. But thanks for extending public comment time to allow me to speak. And good evening, Chief. Good to see you in the new uniform as well. So Migrant Justice is a grassroots organization founded and led by immigrant farm workers in the state of Vermont. We've been heavily involved in the process of both on the statutory and on the policy end of things, creating the framework and implementation around fair and impartial policing policies in the state of Vermont, and in particular, making sure that there are robust protections against discrimination for immigrant communities in that policy. We were very much involved in the lead up to the 2020 Burlington City Council resolution, which passed, I think it was 10-1 in favor of adopting recommendations from Migrant Justice to strengthen the fair and impartial policing policy that Burlington then had on the books. And that strengthened policy with enhanced protections for immigrant communities was on the books from 2020 until 2024, when the Criminal Justice Council updated its model, and then the Burlington Police Department updated its own policy to conform to the model. I know I'm giving a little bit of background that you all know. Our concerns are that in updating to match the updated state model policy, Burlington Police Department actually rolled back the enhanced protections that were implemented following this City Council resolution. And assuming that no changes have been made to the draft since I last saw it, I believe that the draft policy that you all are considering sending to the Criminal Justice Council would also roll back some of those enhanced protections that were put in place by the Burlington City Council in the 2020 resolution. So we would recommend a pause on sending the draft amendments or the draft policy, because we really think that if the Burlington Police Commission wants to consider a policy that deviates from what was passed in 2020 by the City Council, it should really go through the City Council process. And that was an exhaustively debated issue. There were hours and hours of public testimony. The city attorney at the time went through it with a fine-tooth comb. At the time, leadership of Burlington Police Department spoke in opposition to those changes, and hearing that opposition, both the city council and the mayor respectfully considered the opposition and went ahead with the resolution as proposed. Nothing in either state or federal law has changed since the City Council took that action in March of 2020. So we know that there are some thorny legal issues there. we understand the recommendations that the commission is getting from the city attorney, and we know that that can put people in a bind, hearing different legal opinions. But what we really want to underscore is that there were months and months of debate and consideration leading up to that 2020 vote, with people having all the same information that you have now, and the city council at that time determined that it was appropriate to pass those enhanced protections. So we would like to see a policy that matches the enhanced protections that were approved by the city council in 2020.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Oski.
Thank you, Will, and thank you for being here tonight. Except for two amendments, the policy that I've put forward tracks with most of the changes that you wanted. Do you know if any other communities have adopted some or all of these amendments?
Some yes, all no. So the real crux of the matter is this parenthetical, which on the face of it, seems like, how are we debating a parenthetical provision, right? But at its essence, this is really fundamental to the policy. This parenthetical in section 6, subsection D7, gets to the heart of the protection, where the state model policy and then the draft that's being considered right now would allow unfettered communication between Burlington Police Department and federal immigration agencies when the information relates to somebody's immigration or citizenship status. That is the provision that other agencies around the state right now are also looking to strike from their policy. This is sort of contested legal ground both on the state and federal level. As you're aware from the recommendations that you've gotten from the city attorney, there is a statute on the federal level, 8 U.S.C. 1373, which on the face of it would seem to prevent Burlington from doing what it did in 2020. However, in 2020, the city council said, we understand that federal provision. At the same time, the courts are split on whether that statute is constitutional or not. Some have ruled that it's unconstitutional. Some have ruled that it may remain. It's a 10th Amendment anti-commandeering question that the courts are considering. And so at the time, the city council said, we understand the concern, but our policy is going to say we aren't going to make distinctions. At this time, or excuse me, I'll back up. At that time in 2020, the Criminal Justice Council said, okay, we disagree with your legal analysis, but we are going to approve your policy. Since then, personnel changes at both the Criminal Justice Council and the state's Attorney General have meant that those bodies are now responding differently when agencies put forward a policy that the VCJC believes violates 8 U.S.C. 1373. So at the moment, municipalities like Burlington are being told, we can't certify your policy unless it contains this parenthetical. There was a hearing by the Joint Judiciary Committees earlier this month to look at that precise matter. We believe that state statute is exceedingly clear on this matter. 20 VSA 2366, subsection B, clearly states that when the Criminal Justice Council, in consultation with the Attorney General's office, reviews policies to determine whether or not they comply with the model, the only thing they're looking at is, does this provide the minimum protections that are in the model policy? They are explicitly told that they should not be considering whether or not the policy complies with any other laws. And so we believe that by telling agencies that their policies have to comply with 8 U.S.C. 1373, the Criminal Justice Council is actually overstepping their bounds legally, and that's what the judiciary committees are looking at right now. So if you were to submit the policy that Migrant Justice has recommended, the Criminal Justice Council would tell you, as they've told other agencies, we can't certify this policy because it violates federal statute. And this is an ongoing issue that the legislature is looking at and that we hope that they will provide clarity for very shortly. So we would say, of course, communicate with VCJC, see what they'll tell you. We believe that they'll respond in the way that they've responded to other agencies, and that it'll take some legislative intervention for them to provide a different response to the city of Burlington.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, that was very helpful. In terms of, so putting aside the parenthetical for a minute, in terms of the proposed changes that I see as clarifying, getting rid of some extra language that isn't really at the core of what the goal of this policy is it your sense that the Vermont Criminal Justice Council is going to take offense to that being removed?
We don't believe so, no. The closest analog is probably the town of Richmond. They have submitted a policy that is very similar to the one that the Burlington Police Commission has drafted right now, basically adopting all the changes in the migrant justice alternative except for the parenthetical. That was approved by, They initially deleted the parenthetical. The Criminal Justice Council told them, we can't certify your policy unless you put it back in. And they said, okay, on a temporary basis, we'll put it back in just so we can have an enhanced policy in place while the legislature figures out how to deal with the parenthetical question. So they're in that sort of limbo where they've put in place a policy more or less akin to what you're looking at, and there haven't been any objections from the Criminal Justice Council about deleting any of those other measures.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions for Mr. Lambeck? I see Ms. Mary Cox. Commissioner Cox's hand is up. Commissioner Cox?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering whether I'm not at all against like the idea of the proposed changes, but I was wondering if the city attorney McClanahan and the BPD acting chief Burke have had an opportunity to read and weigh in on these changes.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Chief Burke?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate Will's overview on this. I have reviewed the proposed model. I will say that it's a little more nuanced as you look at the approval of these state model policies. The fair and impartial policing one being the one under current deliberation. There's a number of others that we submit on an annual basis with our training hours. So March 1 of each year by statute, we have to submit an affidavit certifying our in-service training hours. And with that, we have to submit our exact policies that are in place as prescribed, as the ones deemed to be state model policy. So the certification, ultimate certification, always goes to the Vermont Criminal Justice Council and their whomever is going to represent them. I don't know who has the attorney role there. So I think that this is something that should be approached very carefully, because every year we have to submit this policy, and if the weather report from the council is that they're not certifying these policies, by statute, the default policy is the model policy which we have in place today, and we need to be respectful of that rule of law and abide and allow the legislative process to play out. This is similar to the deliberations that went on by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council when the 2024 model was developed. Not all goals were achieved by the stakeholders convened there, but I'd like to remind folks that our Vermont Criminal Justice Council is quite expansive now in terms of membership, and this went through an exhaustive process. And regardless of what action Burlington City Council took in 2020 and what we deliberate here tonight, ultimately the Vermont Criminal Justice Council will decide whether or not they're going to certify our policy.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Yes. Well, Commissioner Keefe had a point.
Thank you. So we have, and first thank Commissioner Oski for moving this forward. Really appreciate your work. Unless I've missed something, the only thing that I've seen thus far is the red line proposed amendments from Migrant Justice. So what we have currently is what you would like to see approved. Is that correct?
Two changes that were, sorry. With two changes, I made two amendments to what they wanted.
Okay. In addition, though, I believe that we received your red line draft, and that would entail all of your proposed amendments to the model policy. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay, great. I would like, I think this is a very important and very sensitive issue, given the broader universe in which we exist. But I think it's important we do move this forward. I understood from the process that there were, in addition to Migrant Justice, the ACLU was also a major stakeholder that I think proposed language. I understood from previous discussions we could get the red line version from ACLU.
I'm not aware of a different version that the ACLU put out. I think they were aligned with Migrant Justice.
That's our understanding, yeah, that the Migrant Justice Red Line version has been developed over the years in concert with ACLU.
Okay, but it would be helpful just to get confirmation from another stakeholder. I feel like they were from all the press reports, and I feel like that would just be helpful for us to see. At this point, I haven't had the opportunity to see any of the correspondence from City Attorney's Office or from independent counsel. So I think it would be really helpful if we could see, if there is no additional language from ACU, fine, we have Migrant Justice language. If we could get, based on maybe that draft, maybe the areas that the department maybe might want to weigh in on. I don't think the changes were that expansive to the policy. I don't know if that's possible, if we could, kind of get your comments of areas that you maybe agree or disagree with what's proposed by Migrant Justice. And I feel like if we have that red line draft, some comments from the department, also from City Attorney and independent counsel, I think we would then have all of the information in one place. And I think based on that, we could have a more informed decision of what we would like to submit to the Criminal Justice Council, because right now I wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward until I see all of this other information. It's a highly sensitive and a bit complicated matter, and I just feel like it's something we, as a commission, should be able to take a look at.
Sure, I appreciate that, Commissioner Keefe. Commissioner Oski?
I think that in your inbox there is comments from City Attorney, who represents the police department, and from independent counsel. So they're there. I appreciate that you may not have had a chance to review them, but that is all available now. So
when was that sent? Because I checked my emails today. I don't recall seeing those. Am I alone? Or if I'd missed it, I apologize. I would welcome to be opportunity to have them sent to me again.
That's fine. I'm going to propose to table this anyway. So, but we do have, just want you to know, we do have that body, and I don't believe that there is another red line version from ACLU, but we do have comments from City Attorney McClellan, and we have comments from Anthony Arapino, our counsel, and the general consensus was that it's that we and I'm just going to summarize, but everyone can speak for themselves, but the general consensus was that this, that ultimately we might want to get a read from the Criminal Justice Council on the draft the last final draft that I proposed. It does include, it doesn't delete the parenthetical, it includes the parenthetical on advice from our counsel. And so that's not going to be the best, the highest and best policy, but it is a step in the right direction.
It's great to hear all of this is compiled. If maybe I'm alone, but if I would really welcome the opportunity to see this.
Sure, absolutely. I'm sorry you didn't get that previously, Commissioner Keefe. I'll make sure you get that tonight. Okay. So, Commissioner Oski, did you have a motion to make, or were you wanting to hear from the city attorney first?
I don't know if, I think Commissioner Cox asked if Attorney McClellan could weigh in.
Could I also just say that, I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Cox. I also don't believe I got the comments from everybody, so could you
Well,
just?
thank you
send
very much. I'll make
those?
sure those get sent out again.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Attorney McClanahan?
There we go. Hi, good evening. I really don't have too much more to add other than what Commissioner Oski just kind of summarized. I would say our office hasn't had an opportunity to do a deep dive, but I did provide some initial thoughts this afternoon upon receiving the draft, and I think sort of generally the consensus of there's not a whole lot of available guidance outside of the statute that talks about this policy and the required parts of it, what municipalities can and can't add. There really just isn't a whole lot of outside authority to look to for guidance on that. So I think to the extent that we can go straight to the source and get an opinion from the training council, who, it's their bread and butter. They're the ones that are tasked with reviewing and ultimately approving these policies. I think that that certainly is one way to sort of settle it, at least in the eyes of the council. And, to the extent that the commission would like either our office or independent counsel to take a further look, do a little bit more of a formal analysis on this, happy to do that as well. But yeah, the sort of in sum, yeah, definitely recommend having the council take a look to the extent that they're willing.
Thank you very much. Do you have a motion, Commissioner Oski?
Yeah, I would move to table this item and refer the current draft to the Criminal Justice Council, maybe with a cover letter that we could work on that also raises the question about the parenthetical.
Okay. When you say the current draft, you mean the current red line draft that you had submitted?
Yes,
Okay. The comprehensive, I should say, red line draft.
I think it's called final. It's posted on the
Agenda pack?
on the agenda right now.
Okay, excellent. I'll second that.
Just a point of clarification,
Sure.
that means this will be sent after we've received all the, Commissioner Cox and myself have received all the materials and have the opportunity to weigh in and see if there are any further questions.
Sure, I just forwarded those materials to you again.
So before we send to the Criminal Justice Council, we will have the opportunity to.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, sure, no problem. So I'll second that motion with that amendment from Commissioner Keefe. All in favor say aye. Aye.
I,
Those opposed? Hearing none, that is what we shall do. Thank you very much. That concludes the commission business. Now we are moving on to the chief's report. So Chief Burke, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you so much. So included in the packet for this evening's meeting is my written report, and we'll just walk through this in a brief, succinct manner. Personnel, we're still holding on to 63 sworn officers. We've got vacancies in dispatch, in our Cape Division, in our sworn officer ranks. We are working feverishly right now to process applications for the summer class. That's the next opportunity that we can train police officers. We do have one accepted job offer out, and we're working with a few other candidates. Hopefully, we'll have 3 in the summer class. In terms of incident trends, you'll see the bottom of page 1. This is data from the city data team. Our incident projections are tracking as one would expect, no alarming trends. Something I would like to highlight at the top of page 2, we've kind of taken a cursory look at our deployment strategies here in spring in trying to really set the tone in terms of aberrant behavior in City Hall Park and the marketplace. As such, we've had more officers on foot, and that when I say officers, that's encompasses both sworn officers and our community service officers. And I'd like to highlight the increased metrics on this chart. of addressing things such as ordinance violation, of course, the function of foot patrol itself, and then a number of other areas that we chronically hear from the community that are friction points. And I'd like to applaud our staff for stepping up at a time where, you know, our staffing is what it is, and it's going to be this way for some time, and really coming to that realization as a team and working with what little we have to deliver excellent police service. And I hope that the commissioners have heard from the community, both residents, businesses alike, that they are very thankful that we're stepping up our game this spring. We're also continue to track the catchment of calls that I refer to as unmet social service needs. So these are areas where we have both a co-response depending on danger acuity for a police officer and, say, a street outreach worker or a community support liaison. These are also areas that we use our community service officers. I find it interesting that as a percentile of our overall call volume, that this trend is rather flat over the last greater than a decade. But I, would like to call out that what's different now is where it plays out. So these behaviors are playing out in some of our most prominent shared public spaces, and it's causing, concern for folks. And although the concern may not render you unsafe, but it does certainly make people feel uncomfortable, which they immediately equate to safety. Things like open drug use, public intoxication, even mental health crisis-related events in areas like the Marketplace or City Hall Park really detract from the Burlington experience, and we're working with all the apparatus that we have to better address those behaviors and individuals. We're anxious about the opportunity that we're going to have to engage in what is known as the situation table. So this is the project with the Department of Public Safety, where all stakeholders, so a broad spectrum of government actors, non-government actors responsible for service provision in the greater Burlington area, will convene individual cases. So individuals are elevated to the table by any one of the membership, and then certain stakeholders, service providers will be tasked with trying to address and help the person to change the behavior, and there'll be relentless follow-up with the person that is causing the behavior to try to help them out and to try to gain them some sense of normalcy in their life, so they're no longer viewed as a problem or being problematic, and we're actually addressing root cause. So that's kind of just high-level table setting on that. We're going to be trained at the end of June on this model, and then the timetable for which it'll be launched will be set then. So optimistic in that regard. Also internally, we're still doing a deep dive on role clarity between what police officers, community service officers, community support liaisons, and our street outreach team do individually, so we know what the resource is and how to leverage that resource in any given moment. And we're going to then, once we have role clarity, we started today with our first meeting of the folks responsible for these different entities, to look at the priority response plan and get really the power back to our officers in charge. So on every shift, 24/7, we have an OIC, and we need to not rely on really a rubric of when we're going to respond to things, but rather empower the people doing the work to respond to what needs to be responded to based on acuity, and also using the right resource for the right challenge. Let's see. On page 3, another interesting slide that we have here. This is the second time I've presented it to the Police Commission. This is our incident rate or call volume to suspected drug overdose. What's really illuminating here are the actual drug events confirmed by EMS data. So again, Jeff Nicholson with our city IT team, data team, puts this together, and you'll see that there was a spike back in 2024 where the BPD and BFD were called to a number of potential overdoses. But if you look at the green line, you'll see that the drug events actually confirmed by EMS, that metric is quite a bit lower, More recently, here in 2025, we saw another spike. At first, I wondered if it was weather-related, because oftentimes when the weather gets a little bit better, we'll see increased calls from the public because the behavior is out in public spaces. We also know anecdotally that there was a substance that was being called purple heroin in the community out there, and that the effects of that substance were greater than what folks that use substances on a regular basis were used to. So again, the EMS, or the confirmed drug events by EMS, didn't track the trend that we saw in reported overdoses, but we're starting to watch this very, very closely because as we approach not only our work with the situation table, but as the city approaches potential opening of an overdose prevention center, it's good to know exactly what the overdose rate is in the community, as opposed to the perceived overdose rate of the public calling the police, fire department to report these events. And then I bulleted out a number of things under policy and direction that we've been working on the last 2 months. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the last meeting. I would like to call out that just last week I issued a formal recruitment plan to our recruiting division. So 2 new employees, one is a sworn police officer, the other is professional staff with us. New to their roles, we identified that we need to get them some training and education on how to be recruiters. This profession, we used to be able to sit back and allow the applications to roll in. That's no longer the case. And we also, within that plan, are looking at ways to leverage social media heavily. Again, it's where the demographic that tends to levitate toward public safety jobs, younger folks. That's where you find them looking for jobs. And in certain ways now, like short videos and other things that catch their eye. It's also an affordable way to promote and advertise opportunities here with the Burlington Police. So that's an element of it. We also have a contract with a digital marketing company for some pop-up ads. And within that, we can do geofencing, particularly around areas where we know we're gonna go and recruit from, if we're gonna table at a college or that kind of thing. So we've got that on deck, and we're also looking at ways to develop folks from within. So as you may or may not are aware, every summer we hire a number of younger folks to work in our beach and parks patrol. And typically they're college students. They're either in a lease here locally and interested in public safety, or they're home for the summer and interested in public safety. And we're looking to really engage with those employees. We're gonna have 5 this summer and show them what great work you can do as a Burlington police officer if you want to, once you've rode in or been in the beach and park role. And part of that is just a formal mentorship program where an officer can volunteer to help mentor those people, and we stay in touch with them, and hopefully we can recruit them as future officers with the BPD. So there's a few other components to that plan. Again, this will be version 1.0. And we'll see how much of it works. Again, we'll be measuring the data on the backside to determine the number of applications we're getting across the strategy. And then obviously the things that are working for us, we'll invest more in, and we'll look to kind of expand that plan. I mentioned a little bit about the focused foot patrols on City Hall Park and Church Street, involving both patrol and our community service officers. We've done some improvements to the police department website. So we drew out, if you go right to our landing page now, right at the top is the link to our career site. We think it's important to have that accessible. We also have a link in a different color and font that directs folks to the instrument that was prepared by the administration that really shows or tells folks what resource to call when. So it's a PDF one-pager there if you wanted to check that out. We've improved the customer service greeting on our business lines into police headquarters. When I first came on, the greeting instructed folks to say words to the effect of, if you're having an emergency, hang up and call 911. We decided as a team we don't want folks that are having an emergency to hang up, so they can now press 0 and get directly into our dispatch center so we can get them the help that they need. We're also engaged with the Hotspot Working Group, City Attorney, Burlington Business Workforce Development, in looking at ways that we could potentially leverage city ordinances more effectively downtown to help control some of this persistent behavior that's really distracting from both the quality of life of our residents, business owners, and visitors alike. I've also worked with the team to give the individual leaders that are responsible for our community service officers and the CAPE teams to develop departmental directives for their operations. That's something that came up when we were looking to, when our insurance carrier was looking to edit our liability indemnification, that we're lacking some policy in key areas. So those leaders will be presenting before you, hopefully in the next few months, on individual directives for both community service officers and our community support liaisons. You'll see our work here in the report, actually working with the city data team. I know that Chief Murad was very talented with data and visualization of that data. I am not. And I rely on the city data team and the products that are here in this report, and that you'll see the police department sharing going forward, whether it's budgeting or other community-facing informational sessions will all be coming from the city data team. And I think everyone here is familiar with Shannon at the police department. Shannon is doing an amazing job of not only helping me with the FY26 budget preparation, 8 weeks in now, so I don't know everything about the budget, but Shannon has made sure that I know all the critical pieces before I present on the budget tomorrow evening, and as well as managing the extensive construction projects that we have going on at police headquarters. So that sums up about the last 8 weeks or so, and happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Chief. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Thanks. I have two questions. On page 3 of the document, the blue line in 2024, do you attribute that spike to weather?
So I don't know because I didn't do that type of historical rollback and I wasn't here.
Fair enough. Just curious. Second question. On the social media ads, is the idea that you would recruit people who are police officers in other towns or cities already, or people who just might not have considered being a police officer?
Yeah, so it's yes to both.
Okay.
And what we're looking to do is to develop kind of a couple of different themes of content and to see what gets the most engagement. And then hopefully we would maybe entertain a lateral applicant or two. That would be fantastic. You know, I think in Vermont, that market is pretty limited. It'll be interesting to see as all of our in policing in Vermont, as our workforce is kind of trending younger and younger, to see if someone ultimately wants to come to a place like Burlington where, you know, the work is really rewarding, but it's, you know, good hard work, and you have to want it to be here in Burlington and police in this environment. And we want to be completely transparent in what that is, because I think that's a strength in our marketing. Because if you want to police and you know, the actual urban environment available in this state, you have to do it here. So we hope to. In terms of laterals from out of state, those, you know, there's also great opportunities there. There is a process by which laterals from out of state have to be certified as Vermont law enforcement officers. Sometimes that results in those people having to go through the same academy. So, you know, and we weigh those out. But we are certainly wide open to anyone that's interested in working for us as a police officer. And but a little more focus right now on what's working for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Keefe.
First, thank you. Just a comment, and other commissioners may share it. I've been hearing feedback, a lot of community appreciation for the increased presence of officers downtown. So we know how challenging it is with limited resources. So thank you and your team for, like, as you said, stepping up to meet that challenge. The situation table that you sort of outlined, I think that's really a really interesting, I mean, it seems like a culmination of a work over a period of time, pulling in these different stakeholders, a more holistic approach to dealing with these public safety issues. I know it's still in the works and rather complex, but could you give just a little more of the like, for instance, the role of the CAPE team, who is kind of taking that overarching coordinating role to make sure all the responses are sort of joined up and, the limited resources are used really efficiently?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think not only does it pertain to our work at the situation table, but it's really driving our focus internally. So I think you've heard me say that there hasn't been a lot of really defined roles, role clarity internally, and that's simply because these resources were brought online in a period of crisis, and it's like, you have the plane in the air, and now you have to put the wings on it. So now we've got a period of time to really focus on what should the CSLs be doing. By way of high-level example is how much of their time should be available for frontline incident response and how much of their time should be dedicated to more case management services. So that's the work that our Assistant Director, Lacey Smith, she's undertaking that now, and we hope to gain better clarity on that as we work through this proposed directive process. In terms of the situation table, so this is a grant-funded opportunity where professionals have been working with other communities in the state, namely Bennington, Brattleboro, Springfield, Rutland. I think we're the 5th community coming on, so I'm forgetting one. Nonetheless, they've seen great success there in bringing all the players to the table to just better coordinate the service response. It's similar to a ComStat, if you will, but we know that here in Chittenden County, we have a lot of services available for folks. And I think that the situation table will not only help us better coordinate those services, but probably more importantly, elevate the people in the most serious acute need, whether that's for mental health services or substance use disorder, and try to address them. I'm apprehensive in some ways because we see a lot of service-resistant, treatment-resistant folks in the community, but I'm hopeful that maybe we just haven't had, the right tool out of the box yet, and that the situation table will, illuminate different actors in this space, and that we can really begin to drill down and address some of these root causes.
Thank you. Commissioner Oski? Okay. Commissioner Comerford?
Yeah, just a thought. Over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, something to that tune, we've become more fragmented from what I've seen in the community as a whole. And I'm just wondering about terminology and the difference between referring to this not so much as public safety, but community safety, and reinforcing the connections that we have had in the past and we need to rebuild as a whole. So just a thought.
Yeah, certainly. I know the mayor always talks about community safety. I think my nomenclature comes from my experience, and perhaps I'll be able to change that. But I know that we always used to kind of refer to ourselves as law enforcement. But really, when you're a municipal police officer, a sliver of our work is law enforcement, and it's important that we distinguish ourselves as providing police service because that encompasses so much more of what we actually do. And really, we see ourselves as part of the mayor's strategic vision on community safety. When I use public safety, it's interchangeable. It's not to say that community safety isn't the term, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to shake public safety really soon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cox?
I guess, thank you, Chief Burke. I had one comment, which is, I'm not sure if you knew, but before the pandemic, so a long time ago, I was a member of a BPD internal working group as a civilian representative, working on a plan for community collaboration with the BPD. And what I'm really happy about is that although our plan seems to have just hit the dust in the face of the pandemic and so forth, it sounds like what you're doing now is more or less exactly what we had envisioned with our plan, which is really more of a roadmap. The one thing, though, that I had a question on is that we'd come up with a specific recommendation in our plan to encourage or ask the Howard Center as the employers of street outreach to specifically seek out at least one veteran street outreach person, because although we don't have a lot of veterans compared to maybe some of the rural areas in the state, we do have some. And it seems, based on evidence from other states that have street outreach teams, for example, that are all veterans, that when they interact with veterans, that they get a lot better results if the clinician person is a veteran themselves.
I think that's a great observation, and what I'll do is, so Ingrid Jonas is kind of putting together the group that will form the situation table, and I'll communicate with Ingrid to make sure that we've got either that covered through a VA service or something similar.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Commissioner Comerford, I see your hand is still up. Did you have another comment, or? You are muted, Commissioner Comerford.
I said I could make up something, but I'll just lower my hand.
Okay. Commissioner Oski.
Thank you. Two quick things. One is I understand the need in the past for the priority response plan, but it always kind of frustrated me in its matrixness and rigidity. So I'm glad to see that there's a new approach being taken there and empowering based on need. And I'm sure that may, for some, maybe they don't want that power, but I'm glad to see that is being looked at. The second one is more of maybe an observation or a rhetorical comment, but on page 2, the data that you pulled out to show us the numbers on, these are kind of new data points. They're not the same ones that we've been looking at. And these may be ones that you're used to measuring. I just want to make sure that the data that we've been looking at, the data points that we've been looking at for the last 5 years, are still being collected the same way. And because I don't recall assist public or assist agency, foot patrol wasn't really data that we are collecting, or maybe we were, but it wasn't being shown to us this way. So it's more making sure that we're not throwing out all the old data and trying to cram new ideas into new categories, but that we're building on the database that we've had so we can still look at data and trends. And
yeah, so to that point, the records management system is unchanged. So it's the same repository. These incident types are unique to the Burlington Police, obviously. We've added one. We've added a Directive patrol incident that you don't see here reflected, and really the nuance there. When an employee is out on foot doing a foot patrol, that's a foot patrol. When we've got a problem in the parking garage and we're going to have the CSO drive the CSO car through that garage, or we've got a problem on Manhattan Drive with behavior at the bike path and a police officer is going to drive through that area, motorized patrol, that's a Directed patrol. It makes it a lot easier to talk to the community about what we're actually doing in response to things. But these incident types have always lived within Valcor. And I just felt that it was important because I know that there has been quite a bit of conversation in the community about that the police are out, and there's an appreciation for that. That you can see that trend is actually supported by data, and it's up remarkably so, especially 24 to 25, but 21 to 24 averages are up substantially.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time, Chief. Sure appreciate the report and the comments.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now we will move on to commendations. We have 2 commendations that I will read. Number 1, it says, I am a victim advocate with HopeWorks Vermont. I wanted to make sure you heard about a very positive experience we had with Officer Erin Bartle. I've been working with a survivor who is very nervous about reporting a sexual assault she experienced. She recently decided she was ready to report, but was not comfortable going into the department offices. I reached out asking if an officer could meet us at the HopeWorks office, and Officer Bartle agreed. Of course, our client was still nervous, but when Officer Bartle arrived, I could feel some of the nerves dissipate. Officer Bartle arrived in non-uniformed and in an unmarked vehicle. which instantly made the client feel safer about reporting her experience. This was incredibly important for this survivor. After her statement was taken, the client told me how happy she was that she decided to make the report, and she felt much more comfortable speaking to a non-uniformed officer. This was in part due to her personal safety. No one could tell that she was reporting to a police officer, and in part because she felt like she was talking to another person. Officer Bartle always does exemplary work in making our clients feel safe and cared for, which is what they need most in that moment. Afterwards, it was very important to me to make sure someone in a supervisory role knew about this, so I asked for your contact information. I hope that all of our clients who decide to report to law enforcement are able to experience the safety I know this survivor felt with Officer Bartle. I know that would make a difference for survivors everywhere. So, thank you very much, Officer Bartle. The second one, Commendation number 2, we were called to assist a known patient who had recently returned home after spending 3 months in a program for alcohol abuse. Carly had worked hard to get him into that program, and unfortunately, he had started drinking again shortly after discharge. Over the past few days, Carly had been maintaining contact with him. As soon as I heard the name, I realized this was the same patient Carly and I had recently been discussing, one of our high utilizers. Carly arrived, engaged the patient immediately, and began discussing care options with him using shared decision-making. She felt it wasn't necessary to transport him to the hospital and had already begun looking into better alternatives. However, this gentleman professionally voiced concerns about suicidal ideation comments made by the patient and advocated for transport. Carly agreed without hesitation. I asked if Carly could accompany us to the hospital to avoid delaying transport, and both she and this person were on board. The crisis response team was notified and agreed, and with the plan for A2 to return Carly after the hospital visit. Carly was incredibly proactive. She contacted multiple resources, including a short-term stabilization option through the Howard Center, arranged for a Turning Point Center peer recovery coach to meet the patient bedside, and spoke with the patient's sister, who provided helpful background and additional support information. Carly relayed all of this alongside this other person, clinical report, to the triage nurse. This situation reduced on-scene time for all units, ensured the patient received comprehensive and compassionate care, and resulted in multiple supports being activated to help get him back on track. It was truly a team effort and a shining example of how our integrated approach can make a real difference. So, thank you again, Carly. Thank you, Chief. That concludes the commendation section. And so we will move on. I believe we do have a motion for an executive session today, and I will simply make that motion. I can get to my language here. I would move for an executive session and that we make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at substantial disadvantage with regard to grievance that we have received. Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, we will go into executive session, and I will point out that our next meeting is going to be on June 24th at 6 o'clock. We will be in a different location than this auditorium, and I would thank the Chief for his report again and his presence here tonight, and I would move to adjourn. Do I hear a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.